With that, I'm excited to transition to our keynote. We have with us, I need to switch the PowerPoint. I didn't do that. I'll do it as soon as I hop off. We'll get it. So Dr. Andrea Garfinkel Castro is here with us. She is the founder and president of Transportation Futures, which is a research institute looking at issues of transportation governance, policy, and practice. So Andrea collaborates with partners around the world to understand the governance and planning of transportation generally and the issues of pedestrians. Specifically, she's taught, she has taught university courses on qualitative research methods, ecology, and communication. And she is trained in the ABCD, the Asset-Based Community Development. And her research and publications explore equity and justice in planning walkability, pedestrian safety, planning governance, and planning with diverse communities. And her doctoral research examined unconscious bias and blind spots among planners and planning equity, talk-walk gap. And she has continued to find insight by listening closely, reading between lines, and examining the intersectional gaps, and persistently asking why. And she is here to talk about community engagement, which is, as she's going to explain, as easy as ABCD. And so we're excited to welcome her here. And just real quick before she comes on stage, there is a follow-up session to this keynote, and I think in the program it lists it to be one of the breakout rooms. It's actually going to be in here. And so once she's done with her keynote, if you'd like to learn more, please stay in this room for her next presentation on Place It. And so with that, we'd like to welcome Dr. Andrea Garfinkel Castro. Do you want to set this?
No, I'll be fine, thanks. Okay. All right, ooh, that's loud. Good afternoon. We're here in beautiful Logan. We heard all the wonderful things, and I promise you, I loved the story about the oak tree and the church bell holder. I promise you we didn't coordinate our presentations, but they really fit together really, really well. That's so noisy. Okay. So yes, we have a citizen planner. We have planners, planner adjacents, and I wanted to just chat a little bit about how I got to planning. Because I didn't plan to be a planner. I didn't get here because I woke up as a kid and said, yes, I want to be a planner. And I'm guessing that there are a lot of us here who didn't plan to be a planner. It is a job that is full of complexities. There are these intertwined issues that you can't seem to separate. As soon as you pull out one, you've got another issue. It is a constantly evolving project. As soon as you feel like you've got a solution, you just have another thing pops up. It's what Rattel and Weber in 1965 called wicked problems, right? How many of us had to read that in planning school? Lots of us. So it's just constantly evolving. There's so many competing interests, different communities, you've got your different constituent groups, you've got your different disciplines, you've got the engineers that have a different perspective than the planners. Their only agreement seems to be that there is no agreement, but there is one other, actually, I should say, and that is that planners are the problem. So if this is what you thought as a kid, I want to have a job with all of those attributes, you wanted to be a planner. But I'm guessing that a lot of us found our way here in a very meandering kind of way, not very direct. I will say, everyone's seen these stickers? It says, I love planning. And as I walked in, I heard someone asking someone, do you still love planning? They'd only been doing planning for a year, and she's here somewhere. And she said, well, I've only been doing it a year, so yes, I still do. So it's like, well, let's check back with her in a little while and see if she still loves planning. Many of us do. Many of us love the challenge. Many of us love the complexity of it. And to be fair, one of the jobs of planners is to solve problems. So one of the things we tend to do is look for the problem, right? This is when you're tasked with solving problems, you generally tend to think, well, let's look for the problems. But what we're confronted with these days are challenges beyond planning and planning for community and growing our communities and making them stronger and better places to live. We're confronted more and more with funding shortages. We've had these ebbs and flows of funding. And we know that especially I know that there's this idea of planning for the underrepresented communities, but really I like to think of them as under-resourced, because a lot of times they get the very short end of the funding stick. And so we have a lot of funding shortages. I won't be surprised if we get into that kind of a situation again. We have planners, especially in small towns, smaller cities, and our rural places. You wear many hats. I know you do. You may be the one planner, and you may be a city manager as well. We heard about the citizen planner. Well, you know, when you have those kind of assets, that's great, but not every place has that. I know you wear many hats. It's a challenge. There's a lot of uncertainty with planning. There's a lot of changes. We have changing demographics in every state of the country. So there are those problems that are added to the problems of trying to make great places to live. And there's, you know, we call it lack of community interest, but you know what it really is? We got a lot of busy folks out there. They have jobs, they have kids, they have older family members that they may be taking care of. We've got busy folks. And it's not that they're not necessarily interested, but they have limited time and availability. But as David said, I have good news. I do have good news, and you're probably wondering what that possibly could be. And that is that as planners, although we are tasked generally with solving problems, we can start at a different place. We can start with assets rather than with the problems, rather than with the lack of. We can look at the abundance of. Because ABCD, or Asset-Based Community Development, has one main idea, and that is to take this pair of glasses off, grab another pair, and say, the glass is half full, rather than the glass is half empty. That's the main idea, is to change the narrative, is to take a different perspective and to take stock of what you have. You know, we heard David talk about all of these wonderful places. Now, if you dig down, Logan's not a perfect place. Logan is not Disneyland. It's going to have problems. But what he's doing is he's presenting us with all these fabulous things about Logan and Cache County. So this is really the idea behind it. And I will tell you that asset-based community development is an idea. It's not a formula, and we'll talk more about this. There are ways to do it. There are suggested approaches, but it's really the idea that we start with our assets, because one thing I can promise you with absolute certainty, and you will never catch me wrong on this, that the problems will stay there. If you look first at the assets, you will find that later on when you get to the problems, they'll still be there. There will always be problems there. So what does it mean to start with the assets? It means finding your hidden gems. And an example that I really love, I've been doing a lot of work in small towns and rural places, particularly on walkability and supporting physical mobility, active transportation. an example that is just wonderful is there are a lot of small towns, a lot of small places don't have a good playground for the kids. Harder to get to. Where's this land? Where are they going to get the funds to put in the equipment, to have somebody maintain it? Well, there are a lot of places that are finding we have a small street. We might have a dead-end street. And as a city, we maintain this anyway. So it's called shared spaces or play streets. And for a couple hours a day or on the weekend, they close this street off and it becomes the playground. Now that's a shared asset, but if you just get stuck on, we don't have the funds for a playground, we don't have a place for a playground, what are we gonna do? Well, we won't have a playground. Here it is, here's a street. Most small places even have a street they can close off. So that's what it means to find those hidden gems, is to look and take stock, take inventory of your assets. The other area you want to look at is skills. David talked about being a citizen planner. That is a tremendous asset. Every community has retired folks, someone who's had to stop working maybe because they're too ill to have a regular full-time job, but they can contribute. There are so many of our community members that can contribute a little bit, a couple of hours a week, a couple of hours a day. There are community members out there that have tremendous skills that can contribute to the community development. So it's finding those and again, taking stock rather than saying, well, we have this position, but we don't have funds to pay for someone. Look to your community. There are assets out there. So then there are place assets like the street, which the idea is to think about how things can be added to. We often, a good example is the big box store. I saw one torn down in Ogden. I was just stunned. Here is this big building, and we keep hearing about people who are homeless. We don't have enough space for this. We don't have enough building for that. And they tore down an entire building. So those assets are there, but maybe they're not seen as an asset. They're seen as a liability. So if we turn things around, and when you bring in those community assets, particularly the skills, the people with the skills, and work to build those and to contribute to your community, it engages them and it includes them. It includes your community in creating the better place to live. At the core of asset-based community development is appreciative inquiry. So this is kind of a formulated idea that looks in the same way that ABCD does it's been used in organizations to identify the positive, identify those assets. And I bring it up because it's talked about a lot in asset-based community development circles as a starting place. There are resources out there that can help you understand the process a little better, but it's an idea. It's not a formula, it's an idea. One of the core tools to asset-based community development is asset mapping. If you Google this, asset mapping, you will see dozens of versions. So I'm going to present some of the ideas behind it and a couple of versions of it. So there are multiple areas. Generally, they focus on 6 areas. I'm going to present 4 areas. One of them are those individual assets, like the citizen planners, people with skills and trades, people with lived experience, and local knowledge. This is really, really critical in smaller places that have long histories that may not have been well preserved, may not be recorded, but are part of the character of a place and can be brought back in as you're looking to rejuvenate or revitalize the community. That's the kind of knowledge you can draw on. Every place has some sort of institutional asset, whether it's the educational system, your health services community, your local businesses. This is another area to map and to identify what you've got. This is the whole idea, is to try not to forget any of those pieces of what you've got. Community assets are extremely important, and we know this, but when we start doing the work, we tend to forget these things. So there are the religious organizations, you've got sports leagues and PTAs, you've got the nonprofits, the grassroots, and then you've got all kinds of random community groups, the sewing club, different kinds of organizations. The library is considered. So then we've got our physical assets. These are the streets, the dead-end streets that you can turn into a playground. It's the library that can become a meeting room for other uses besides the library. I want to talk about the mobility environments, because as planners we know how important transportation is, and when you're talking about particularly small places that may not have internal road systems, or you got a lot of trails. Don't forget to look at your trails, and even those, like the little deer trails where, they're not paved, they're not marked, they're not official. Those are assets, and to remember to include those when you're mapping your assets. The technological environments are really, really important these days. Let's go back here. The health services. Smaller towns, rural towns, they have a disproportionate representation, so there are more older people as a percentage of the population in smaller rural places than there are in the big cities. I don't exactly know why, but that's the case. Healthcare is extremely important as you get older. However, you're far from a lot of those healthcare services. But what we do have is we have a lot, thanks to COVID, we have a lot of telehealth. But you can't make that happen without the technology, getting in broadband, getting in the fiber optics. Those kinds of things are really important, and those are the assets. When you have those, you can combine them. School classrooms can become telehealth offices on the weekend or in the evening. So there are ways to take advantage and leverage the assets that you have to fill some of the gaps and some of the needs. Let's see. Okay, so here is an example of asset mapping. That's kind of a cool looking one. I thought it looks good. It's a little less systematic, but it's truly an asset map. Again, I just pulled these off the internet. I gotta remember this. So this is a more traditional ABCD asset map. You can see the different areas, the 6 areas that you generally have. It's not as pretty. It's interesting, but you have to kind of make an effort to read it, but it certainly captures the information you want. This one I thought was really interesting because it has an organic, it's representative of a tree, a living thing, which is very much what our communities are. Our communities are alive, they're evolving, they're changing, they're growing, they're dying back. There are pieces that fall off and drift away. I think this is, I love the idea of a tree as an asset map of a community. So those are examples of asset mapping. Let's see. So again, it's not a formula, it's an idea. It's adaptable. It is truly adaptable. You can use this in a city, in a town, in a neighborhood. You could use this for, you can do it for an organization if you wanted to. So it's size adaptable, it's context adaptable, it is flexible, and that's why it is adaptable. It's also evolvable. If you go back to that tree, the idea of a tree is that it is evolving. It is growing, changing, So it really is something that can evolve with your community, and it's extremely accessible. This is something you do with your community as much as possible. And my next session, which is going to be a thing called Place It, is an example of how you can engage communities and in a very accessible form, and it can be merged with asset-based community development. Wanted to give a little shout out to the originators. This is something that has been practiced, I'm sure, since the beginning of planning. It's one way to do planning, but this is John or Jody Kretzman and John McKnight. I have to tell you, the guy on the left, John McKnight, I can't find a picture where he's not smiling like this. He just looks ecstatic. So that's really him. They wrote this book in 1993, and it's they have now this oh gosh, I forgot to change it again. ABCD Institute. That's set in DePaul University in Chicago, and you can take a course, and most of them are a 6-week course. You commit a couple of hours each Saturday, take their course. There are also books. Their website is full of stuff, so it's a great resource. These are, I also, whoops, I wanted to include a couple of books. I told you there's a book about appreciative inquiry. This is very widely used by a lot of organizations, to be honest. Good urbanism is kind of, it models itself really on asset-based community development. It's got a slightly different language, but it's really the same idea, and it's a very good book. The Abundant Community, I especially wanted to call out. John McKnight is one of the authors there, and it's really about, it's like, forget the planners, forget the big decision makers, forget the funders. We're doing this as a neighborhood. This is taking stock of what you have in your neighborhood, block by block. Oh, you repair cars, and you know how to sew. Okay, so let's exchange our knowledge. Let's exchange this, and it's really community to community, peer to peer. It's extremely, if you're feeling like it's sort of a rainy day in your life, read this book and you will be uplifted and excited and go, yes, all kinds of things are possible. And I want to thank you all. Thank you for kicking off the Spring 2025 conference with a bang. Your presence is so appreciated, and I don't know, I didn't really get a sense of the time. Is there time for questions? Do we want to do questions? Is this maybe the next session?
Yeah, if you want to do 5, we can do 5, 10 minutes. Questions.
Got questions at all? You're just jumping out of your seat, ready to go and do this? Well, join me if you like for the next session. It's going to be very hands-on. We're going to be doing fun stuff with little doodads. That's as much as I can tell you. Oops. And I just want to thank you all for being here, and I appreciate your attention. Thank you so much.